That was a fabulous experience because we were in Malibu. Is it called Malibu Park? It's up in the Malibu Canyon. There was a camp up there. And it is the first and only time in my life where I have rehearsed for weeks where we shot the movie. In other words, even in theater, if you're in a campsite, you're in a theater. You know, you're on Broadway or you're at the Mark Taper Forum, wherever it is, you have to create the reality. And you have a lot of time rehearsing it, and you simulate a woods, and the lighting helps you and all that. But you're in a theater. This was having a rehearsal period. It was in a gymnasium. They marked off the floor as if it were a play, so that when Joanne, the wonderful Joanne Woodward, and Christopher Plummer were doing their scene, I tiptoed around with Jimmy Broderick, and we stood ready to do our scene. So we were doing run-throughs of the movie as if it were a theater piece for at least a week. So there was that process. But then we started rehearsing. Actually, it was a hospice, and it was a campsite. So we were on the steps with squirrels and birds and planes running overhead a lot. Drove Paul crazy with the planes going over. And he'd have to stop for sound, of course. And we rehearsed there for a while. In the actual, when we left the gym, we went to the actual places where we were going to shoot. And then when shooting came, darling, you're Jim. He's Paul, God love him. Another one in heaven. Paul would come to us and say, he'd say, Val, I'm sorry, we're going to go out of sequence. I said, out of sequence? There's no such thing, because we've been rehearsing this like a play. So you knew exactly where you were in your mind, in your heart, in your emotional development, all the way along the whole continuum of your role. So it didn't matter if we shot out of sequence, which you always have to do in movies. So a lot of times you get to the set or the location, and it's like, oh, where are we? Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, is this before or after I meet him? Oh, yeah, okay. And then you're there, and you're out in the woods, and you're doing the woods scene. But this, to have rehearsed there, to have tried it 20 different ways, and he's a wonderful director. He was just spectacular and distracting as hell. I would be talking to him, and he'd be telling me something, and I'm looking in his eyes, and I'm going, it's Paul Newman. Those eyes. And they were glacial blue. They were blue, but warm. Isn't that an interesting... I remember feeling that. I thought they're so icy and perfect blue, like sparkling crystals, but so warm, so full of just heat. So he was everything. He was all elements in one. And so unassuming. He made the best popcorn for all of us. And then went on to, God bless Paul Newman. What a great human being. I mean, fabulous what he did with his life. Talk about a contribution. Anyway, I was lucky enough to be directed by Paul, and it was a joy. Melinda Dillon and Sylvia Sidney were in the movie, and the fabulous James Broderick, Jimmy, who was Matthew's dad. Yeah. And he used to talk about his 12-year-old. His 13-year-old. He said, one of them, he said, they're all talented, but this one, I think he's going to be an actor. Yeah, sweet.